that was me about 5 years back. It was very, starting out very naive, and I had just moved back from the US, and so I didn't realize the impact that mosquitoes would have if you wear shorts all the time, right? So that was really bad. And then Nerf guns was another bad idea in the studio. We had to really throw all of that. At one point, the interns had a gala fight, which was very, very frustrating. So, anyways, that was quite a while ago. I run analogy design. Oh yeah, thank you. I run analogy design, which basically focuses on tangible and intangible physical and digital experiences. We work across the globe with clients, working on various different industries, and most of the time we are working at the intersection of technology and design. Right? We love products that have technology and that involve technology. And if you guys have seen our work, our website, you'll see kind of all those projects on there. Obviously, non-NDA stuff in there, right? Um, so my background is predominantly in the world of accessories, where in the US, I was working a lot on these kinds of products, and about close to 150 products we had launched in less than 3 years of time. I mean, the industry itself is brutal because the way time runs. I mean, it's perfect for what if Einstein ever knew about this industry, then he would have really smiled, because time is very relative in this industry. Like, so just to give you guys an example, we would finish a production run, meaning full tooling, for those of you who understand what it is, production in less than 4 weeks, which is in a month, a product would be ready to launch. That's the speed at which things were run. There were instances where I'd be sketching on a plane, go down, there's a engineer waiting for me in a van in Hong Kong, get in there, finish the CAD work. By the time we get to the factory, the tooling managers are there and we're working on the next set of things. So it was super rapid pace. So that helped me hone my skills extremely fast. Like, so for the 2-3 years that I worked on accessories, I could really get a lot of experience, and then on the ground experience with manufacturing units in China, that taught me a lot. I mean, all the elitism of I'm a designer, I'm not going to do this, just vanishes once you set foot on a factory floor, right? You'll have to be on the mold shop. Your hands are red because of all the ink that they put in to check the interference in tooling. It's a fantastic experience. Any of you industrial designers? How many industrial designers here? Yeah, you guys have to go to factories. Okay? That's a request and a huge suggestion, that you guys should visit factories. Manufacturing, yeah, it's horrible at first. Even I hated going there, but you'll understand later. So, but the thing I realized after doing so many of these products is that all I'm designing are just innate physical objects which have no conversations, which don't have a voice, which pretty much have no experience and can change at the whim of a new product launch. So a new product comes in, a new feature comes in, this product is no longer relevant and we're throwing it away, right? So that's where this belief came in, that the best design products are the ones that people preserve. Like, I wouldn't necessarily say timeless, because in our generation timeless is not going to work, but something that people preserve, whether it's through memories, through keeping it in the in their minds, or whether they're using it frequently, is something that's very important. So let me just show you a little bit of what I do. Instead of running through a very long presentation, I thought we'll put this quick showreel video. So that was some of the work that we've been doing, and you'll notice a lot of intersections around um, the technology side of things, whether it's a metaverse fitness app that we're working on, or we're looking at combining both physical and digital. That's a focus that we really delve into, because I honestly feel that is going to be the future of every single physical or digital product, because these two cannot live without each other, right? Like, so there can be pure physical, I mean, sorry, digital services around fintech and everything, but you've seen the whole Paytm device, right? Like, if you guys know the numbers, it's staggering. It's a 4,500 crore market, and the adoption rate is so high that every single kirane ka dukan wala has a Paytm thing or a phone pay thing or somebody else, right? And that's a perfect example for a physical and digital thing. So there's plenty of that in plain sight. We just have to open up our eyes and look into that. So my philosophy around basically what these products should be are based out of three main attributes. One is that it absolutely has to have a soul, right? Like, so they can't just be innate physical objects, they have to be soulful. They have to have a personality, right? Like, you can't just create objects right out of thin air and connect it to some really crazy inspiration. Like how you see certain mood boards which just have whole pictures of products, right, which don't really bring any emotional connection to a consumer. Like, this is one of our wireless charger designs that we did for a German brand that was mainly focused for women, right? So we were looking at fashion trends, what was their uh, preferences, and then what is color going to be like, what are the shapes, what are the forms. Every single detail matters when we are trying to create an experience, whether it's digital or physical. Detail matters a lot. And the third one is, it absolutely has to have an identity. And I'm not really just talking about brand, right? Like, so if you guys, as you as a person, right, you have an identity. Similarly, you should make sure that any of these products that you guys are working on should have an identity. This is a night lamp called Sea Clock, which basically has it's inspired from these candle clippers which used to be there in the early 19th century things, where once the candle burned, it would just clip and close the candle off. So even if you're sleeping at night, it would just douse it out. It's a similar idea, but it really brings about that story to the overall product, but in a much more modern way, right? Like, so it's not really just a blatant copy, but it's a very nice reinterpretation. There's not a lot of fresh ideas or things around right now, so the reinterpretations work really well. So creating identity is something that's very important. Now, when we look at all of this, right, like when we look at experiential products, when we look at physical and digital stuff, what I'm showing you here is a very concise, typical linear design process, right? So we start with a planning thing, which involve research, which will involve a whole bunch of like road mapping. Then there's mind maps, and what all we as designers like to call it, which none of the world understands or appreciates, right? All of that is put in that. Then you have concept generation, refinement, selection, engineering design, and proof of manufacturing. Now, when we look at this sort of a linear design process, right, there's a very interesting thing that we figured out at some point of time is research doesn't just stop in planning. Research goes all the way down until manufacturing. You're constantly researching. So what we see a lot of designers do is that they stop most of these things. The second thing is also that in concept generation is the only time you're sketching. Your pen and paper is working only when you're doing that. But that doesn't stop there. You actually have to be sketching during refinement when you're doing CAD. I spent most of my career sketching on whiteboards in factories, because that's what I called the millimeter wars, where we used to honestly fight for 1/3 of a millimeter with an engineer, because I mean, it was not that great of a thing. Like, you realize that later with experience, but it was like, I don't want to give up. This is my design. I want it exactly like this. And the engineer's banging his head and going like, who the hell did I get? I mean, this is my day off, and I wanted to go home. But that, and after a period of time, that turned into mutual respect, and the guys would appreciate that I would fight for 0.3 of embossed depth in a product because it would look really nice when there's a shadow or a light reflecting in there. But the point I'm trying to make here is this linear process doesn't work for experiential products because there's a whole bunch of iterations that are required, right? So when we do experiential products, it is a constant iteration, prototype, test, move on to the next phase. So you can't stop that sort of a thing. So it's a cyclical process which kind of goes on without you guys realizing that, oh, I have to do this, right? Because every time you test, you find an insight. And a natural question could be like, so then how do you manage client timelines, right? Like, because if this goes on forever, somebody's going to just be pissed off. Like, does it go on for 6 months? Does it go on for 6 years? How do you do that? So each of these lines that are there as quadrants, we plan a finite amount of we are going to need for this sort of a thing, right? So it's a very cyclical process, and I just wanted to kind of bring that to your attention that anything that you work on, don't work on a linear design process. It has to be tested. It has to be figured out. Put it in the hands of users. Put it in the hands of people that will give you an opinion, not the ones who basically would just give you an opinion for the sake of it, but like actual users who would actually give you some insights around it. So let's take an India context right now. This is one of my favorite topics, and the reason I'm bringing it here is there's quite a lot of opportunity for experiential objects to be designed in India. So I wanted to put a very bleak image of all these objects here because that kind of reflects the state of where we are in, because that's what consumerism is based out of right now. So, but why design in India is important is one is we should not be working to alter behavior when you design. So a lot of portfolios that we look at, a lot of projects that we look at, especially from inspiring aspirational people like you guys sitting in the audience here, is you just to kind of make a dent. You shouldn't be looking at behavior alteration. India is one of the most tough markets. It's the most resilient. We as a people are very resilient. This is why I put that image of the vendor, right? Like you guys might have all gone through this. There is negotiations happening at that level, and it doesn't change, right? So we have to work around this, social thing of like understanding why we do certain things in a certain way in India. So a long time, maybe my generation, my parents' generation, they've just lived by this slogan saying, fine, you bring whatever things you want, design whatever products, whether it's a trading product, bring it in, we'll adapt to that product, right? We'll adapt our lifestyle, our behaviors to that product. So this whole thing from 3 Idiots saying, all is well, that is basically what has been happening in India for a while, but not now. With the new generations coming in place, right? You guys are much more receptive of what you want. You have your preferences. You know exactly what you want, and that's a very good thing for India, right? We need to be cognizant of the fact that our needs and our lifestyle and the way we do things are entirely different from the world, and we shouldn't be taking some product that's made in the US or made in Europe and then just transported over here, and we change our lifestyles, our behaviors, our social patterns to kind of conform to that product, right? So that presents a huge opportunity. These are some examples of brands that have done that, right? Who have come to India and who've basically put out products that were just cheaper in versions of whatever they used to sell around the world, and they failed miserably only because of that reason, right? Like, so if you remember GM, Chevy was a huge brand. There's the Chevy Beat. I think that was the first project that was developed here, right? Which was a little successful. But if you look at all the others, none of them work because they're not India-centric, right? So India's at that point right now where there is a lot of focus on India-centric products, right? So similarly with Kodak, Volkswagen, they introduced the Beetle, didn't work at all, right? I mean, you'll still see a few running around, but didn't work. Dunkin' Donuts, who remembers Dunkin' Donuts, right? Like, who eats donuts for breakfast? It doesn't work in India. Like, who wants to have that sugar rush in the morning? Nobody wants that. Danone, the curd brand, I'm sure you guys remember. Papa John's, I mean, disaster, right? So And why is that? Why is that happening? Is because there is a a new generation market that's opening up, not just in the metro cities, but also in tier two and tier three cities. So when I talk about tier two and tier three, the rapid growth of the real estate market, and also with higher disposable incomes coming in, there's a hunger in tier two markets. They've seen products that are available in the urban markets outside tier two cities, and they want that. So there's a latent need of that, and we just need to really understand that market and design for that market. There's a huge opportunity that I think we can look into that. So, and if you notice in India, a lot of brands, what they do is they work on products that we call trading products. So it's either sourced from a factory in China, put a logo, and then sell it here in India. Bring in SKD, which is a kit that they import, and then assemble it here in India, and then call it made in India, and things like that. And that's not bad. I'm not saying that's bad, because that's actually a very good thing. It's a very smart thing for an entrepreneur or a startup to do that, because they're great for early adoption, for testing the market without investing into really long and expensive cycles of product development. Okay, so I really think that's a very good, smart way of going about. But then once you become a category leader, that doesn't really bring anything to the table. Once you become a category leader, you're leading that category. You can't sustain growth from a trading point of view. You have to have constant innovation. You have to design for your local markets. You have to design for your demographics. So I wanted to show you a couple of good and bad examples of what experience would mean in this context. So if you see the first one here, the straw is actually made out of pasta dough. So it's not a plastic straw; it's just pasta, and it's made in this. That's what I think. It's the tiny details I was talking to you guys right about. The second thing is the cart, which has an inbuilt calculator, so you know how much you're purchasing grocery wise. The other one is a beer pitcher, which has a built-in ice thing there to keep it cool. Right? How many times we've got like warm beer? And the last one is the sorry, not the last one, but the next one is a toothpaste one, which comes in with an inbuilt accessory to roll it up and squeeze out the toothpaste. The last one is the sheet with like a pocket for a remote, right? So these are not really expensive or technology driven things, right? Experience can be created just by understanding and creating simple functional need for consumers who are doing it. It doesn't have to be something that is out of this world or complicated or something. It's just understanding needs and creating simple solutions for it. And the most important thing, I think, in the other talks, also a lot of people mentioned, it's just that as designers, we need to have one very important trait, which is observation. And a lot of research gets done. I'm sure you guys come up with it. I am currently a guest lecturer at NID, and I see a huge bunch of research, right? 40% of this, 70% of that, 27% of this, 80% of this. Numbers are worthless. I would rather see you guys take a video camera, go down, look at the user, observe them for a day, shadow them for a day, come out with insights, would just come up with simple ideas like these, right? That would be amazing in terms of creating good experiential objects. So let me show you some examples which anybody can tell me what's wrong with the first one? The ketchup bottle? That's one thing, correct. But what's inside? So you have the most viscous, thick liquid put into a glass bottle with the tiniest snout, right, of a cap. And every time you have to either tap it on the back or shake it, and it comes out all in one shot. And if you're wearing a white dress, you're dead, right? So the most simplest product is done that way. The office chairs, I don't know. I've never sat on a comfortable office chair till now. Either they're way too expensive or a normal one just doesn't fit. The third one is an image of using headphones as laces in your this thing. While the idea is really cool, how long do you think that's going to last? Like if you have kids at home, that's done. That's gone. And then the fourth one is really funny and very ironical because you need a scissor to open up a scissor packaging. And the last one is great. Again, as an idea, it's great. But somebody who's going to use this, which is an aged person, God help that person figure out what that reading is on the screen, right? So again, I just want to bring to your attention that it's very simple to create these kinds of objects. It's just about looking into and making those observational points, and that will give us a lot of insight into how we move. So how do we define an experience, right? Like according to me, there are two things. There's one which is tangible and the other ones which are intangible, right? Like so tangible will be the physical and digital parts, and most of the products these days have an app. I call them the dumb smart products, right? Like which probably don't need an app. And then you have the other values which are emotion, memorability, usefulness, and relevance, right? And relevance is again very, very important. So we need to really keep these in mind when we try to design for experiential objects. The attributes are broken down into these main things for, let's say, an experiential product. It's around behavioral aspects. Looks obviously matter because you're going to buy with your eyes first before you actually buy with your money, right? So never ever discount looks. It has to be beautiful, it has to be inspiring, and it has to be aspirational, right? Very important. Then there has to be an input output part where there is a display and a feedback that needs to come, and a very clear messaging that kind of aligns you to say that, hey, I want to buy this product because I align with their messaging. I like it because they're using sustainable materials. I like it because they're fun. I like it because they align to my values. I love their messaging, right? And the last is how it makes you feel when you use it on a constant basis. So, what would an Indian context look like for, let's say, designing experiences? Number one would be to create trust, right? So, without trust, a lot of brands are going to have a lot of problems in terms of introducing anything new into the marketplace. A lot of brands actually are afraid to introduce these kinds of things in the marketplace because there is not a lot of trust on the brand side with the consumers to say that, oh, you know what, this product is good, I'm going to buy this product, right? The second thing are the physical interactions. Physical interactions are equally important as your digital interaction, because if you leave that, I mean, the physical world is not disappearing. Yeah, it'll get minimal, it'll get a little toned down, but it's not going to disappear. We are still going to be using physical devices. We've grown up with physical devices. We'll also end up with physical devices throughout our life. That's not going away. It might morph into a few different scenarios, right? The third thing is packaging, right? It has to be eye catching. A lot of issue in Indian brands is the packaging, right? Like, so packaging has to be a really good thing. Digital touch points, obviously your app and everything needs to understand what exactly you're showing. It just can't be that I download a UI kit and then I'll make a digital touch point. No, it doesn't work, right? So you can't create good experiences around that. And then very interesting marketing campaigns, right? Has to be, an overall thing around this. So there's something called converging design when physical design and digital design meet in the middle, right? And so what is that journey, right? Like, so the more important things around physical products would just be these three things: aesthetic, functionality, and ergonomics, right? So if you master these three things in a product, physical product design is going to be taken care of in a really, really nice way. Obviously, there are more things that you can add to it and so on and so forth, but I would say these are the three main things that you need to keep an eye on. And for digital interfaces, the number one thing is usability. If it looks pretty and so on and so forth, doesn't matter. Has to be really good to use, right? Like I said, there are certain products which just load you up with animations. Smallest thing you touch, oh hey, then coins run around and there's confetti coming everywhere. It's not required, right? Like people get annoyed after people. It's like, "Arey yaar, kya kar rahe ho?" Every time I just bought one thing, no need to throw confetti every single time, right? It's really annoying. So usability is very important. Accessibility again is something that's super crucial. And these two define the overall engagement for a digital product, right? So when you combine and overlay these with the physical design attributes, you'll kind of see a very stark similarity, which will define, like, your design philosophies also, to say that, okay, this is how I can actually match usability to aesthetics. I can actually match accessibility to functionality. I can match engagement to ergonomics, right? So it works hand in hand. We're just looking at it as two separate industries for now. So some of the industries that I see in India that these kinds of experiential objects can actually live in are these. Like basically, there's a huge opportunity home appliances because a lot of people buy these and a lot of people use this on a daily basis, right? I'm sure all of you seen your parents or like your cooks and maids go through all of these, right? Like it's such a crucial part of our lives. There's automotive and mobility, which is a very upcoming industry, especially with the advent of electronic vehicles and so on and so forth. It's a really interesting field to actually design for in India. There's so many things that can be done, right? Like so, if you saw, one of the things in our show reel was a HMI interface that we did for a car brand. So there's so many things we can do, right? There's human machine interfaces for pharma, for medical devices. There's a lot of work that can be done in these areas. Finance and payments, the Paytm example is something that I was giving. There's quite a lot of that's going to come in the next few years. Rest assured, there's going to be a lot of those service-based product design. Smart home devices, obviously around security, automation, IoT based. Scientific instruments. This is something that a lot of people ignore, but there's a huge amount of design potential here because a lot of these instruments are imported from outside. And we as a country produce a bulk load of scientific instruments and then export it out. So there's a huge amount of work. Any of you need ideas for portfolios, work on some scientific instruments. Last, health and wellness, obviously, right? Like so, if any of you had a Healthify Me subscription, they send you a scale that's bought from China. There's plenty of options here to work on. So I think for students as designers, these are some of the things I would really talk about for what you guys can do for experiential, products. You have to have a multidisciplinary mindset. You can't just think that I'm an industrial designer or I'm a digital designer. I'm just going to work on communication. It requires all of that as a combination, and that's why it's so interesting, and that's why it's going to be so rare that one of you actually choose to do. It's not just one discipline that you have to look at. It's a combination of everything, and I wouldn't say everything, but a few key things that I'm talking about here. So please work on a multidisciplinary mindset. When you start thinking in that way, there's a whole bunch of possibilities that'll open up. And be ambitious with your projects. We've done enough tape cutters. We've done enough, what are the chairs, laptop stands, stools. The portfolios are full of those. Let's do something interesting, right? Very important to understand technology and its impact. Like if you don't understand the technology, experiential objects are going to be really tough because these are all very well connected with technology. So you need to know, let's say you could invest a little time in understanding how electronics are designed, like how PCBs are made, what are some of the functions you can do, what's AR and VR doing, how is mixed reality working, image recognition, right, image processing. There's a lot of scenarios that designers can build upon in those kinds. Your core skills have to be very strong. So CAD, your sketching, it should not become like, hey, how do I do this? It should be like first nature to you. You get a problem, you know what to do. So work when you're in school. That's the greatest thing that I miss is working on the core skills, right? So really, really hone them out, make them very strong, and that'll serve you really well. Rendering obviously is a core skill, animation, core skill. And the last one is, like I said, build an ambitious, diverse portfolio. Don't just stick to the same kind of things. And don't go with the research, ideation, prototype, rendering, final image, black image, then sketches, photography, my hobbies. That doesn't work, right? Like you have to design your user journey first before you go and design a user journey of a product, and that's your portfolio, right? So let's work on that. Let's work on figuring out what exactly that part is going to be, right? So build something in a cyclical manner. Again, it should be something where in one project you can show sketching skills, another one could be research based, another one could be prototyping based. Work on that sort of thing so it's very diverse. So designers can work on a lot of things, and what I mean is, please don't underestimate the power that you have as designers, right? Like, so you can definitely create meaningful and impactful experiences. It's just a matter of time before you hit that. Be patient. Design is a long game. It takes time. Don't get influenced by social media, LinkedIn statuses, Instagram statuses, award. I got selected here. I'm working here. Don't look at all of that. Just do your thing. It'll work out. You will definitely influence the way interaction happens with people, which is a superpower. It's almost a responsibility, I would say, as designers that we should have. Like, how are we influencing interaction? And it has to be good, right? We are responsible for that. Selecting the right tech. Again, it can't be too expensive. It can't be unrealistic. We can't go and do something that Google did with the glasses, right? Like, so you have to select the right tech, and look into the big picture as well. See it as a whole. See it as an ecosystem, and how you can actually delve into all of that. And finally, I would say it is tough, but you don't have to stop, right? As designers, the one thing that my mentor told me is, if you're in this business, you need to have a really, really thick skin, right? So you guys need to develop that thick skin. And I'm pretty sure in design in India is going to be very bright. Like I've always said before, make in India, design in India should become a movement. So make sure you guys, as students, you guys have the power to do it. Make sure that you guys also support that, and make sure that design in India is also successful. Thank you, guys.